All right, so.
Have a good day.
Thanks, man. See you later. That is Mr. Lawrence. So when you go hang out with him for wellness, Mr. Lawrence. So here's what's up with homework. Because we didn't get all the way through the lesson yesterday, we are going to finish the 717 lesson, and then we're going to start 718. Depending on how far we get, we'll probably just finish 718 tomorrow and then have some work time, or potentially start working on a little bit of the closure, because we'll be doing closure next week. So, like, don't freak, like, go ahead and write this down. But don't, like, freak out about, oh my gosh, it's all going to be, like, I'm going to give you through the weekend. I'm not going to collect your guys' homework this week because I have decided / realized that I need to collect Math 7's homework. Because I have some people that I am worried are getting themselves very far behind. And I need to catch that before they get too far behind, because that gets bad. So if you hear yourself in that statement of getting far behind or not writing things down in your plan book or not checking your plan book accurately, please, like, be honest with yourself. And I feel like a broken record when I keep saying this. But guys, like, all it really takes potentially, and actually don't just be honest with yourself, be honest with your classmates. If you see that your classmate isn't filling in their plan book, you're like, hey man, like, you know we're all supposed to fill in the plan book, right? Like, what's up with, like, do you need help? Do you need, like, can I help you catch up in your plan book? Like, Connor wasn't here, right? So Connor was absent. So if he looks at my homework board, he can figure out what the homework was, or he can ask a classmate, right? I can go to George and be like, George, come borrow your plan book. I was sick yesterday. I want to get down all the homework and make sure it's right. And I trust that George wrote down the right homework. Like, use your classmates. But also, if you are one of those classmates that, like, is on it, like, you're rocking 7th grade, be, like, I don't even know what word, like, be a helper. Like, be available for your classmates to, like, lean on you a little bit. It's okay. Don't let them lean on you completely, but help out your classmates. What did we talk about yesterday? I ate too much candy last night. Actually, I only ate one. I ate one piece of candy last night. I'm just joking. But what did we talk about yesterday, Quinn?
We talked about increase and decrease.
Increase and decrease. What do you mean?
Tips and like sale. No, not tips, but
Ooh, we will talk about tips.
Like sales. We were talking about like sale price, how to calculate sale price increases.
Yeah. So we want to jumpstart our memory. Hey guys, what are we doing? Come on. If we want to jumpstart our memory, we first talked about MoCare, right? They increased their price. We figured out that they went up by 20%, which we got our 120% answer. And then we could model it like this. That we called a percent increase. Right now, percent increase is one of percent changes. So if it's not increase, it could be decrease. So then we help Paige figure out what her percent discount was. And now we're here. Now, this is where, and if you know what like the nitty-gritty means, this is where like the rubber hits the road of increase, decrease, not working the same both directions. So I worked at Old Navy. Actually, I worked at a million, well, not a million. I worked at a lot of places. But at Old Navy, one of the things we would have to do is like change prices depending on sales and things like that. And if like the whole store was 20% off, they would put up these signs that would just drive me bonkers because Old Navy's prices aren't that confusing to begin with. So they'd be like, $5 shirt, 20% off is now $4. And it would drive me crazy because it's like showing every single price in the store and now the percent off. Like, okay, I get it. Americans are bad at math or whatever, which it hurts my heart to say. Like, we really are. If you rank compared to the world, we don't do very well, which is why we're trying to restructure how we teach people math and how we get you to understand that. But guys, 20% is freaking easy because it's just 10 doubled. Right? We talked about this last week when we talked about a tip, I think.
Yeah,
When we talked about tipping a waiter. And you can just move the decimal and double. Like now, weird percentages like 17 or like I get it. There's some hard ones, but like this should not be hard for Americans to do, and yet we just keep putting up signs. Here's your percent off. Here's your new price. Kills me. So this is where we realize like, oh, if the price went up by 20%, it coming down by 20% doesn't do the same thing. 20% one way is not the same as 20% the other way. It's different. So check out 78. If we have a price that goes from 30 up to 33, right? Maybe it came into the store and the store paid $30 for it, and they're like, okay, I want to make a little bit of money off this. What was the change there? $3, right? So if I draw a diagram like we did yesterday, we had our $30. It goes up another. Guys, are we just throwing stuff back there? Are we mad? We're in math class. Ah!
Gravity works. Yes.
So our change, as you guys just said, is 3. When we might want to write this down again. Sorry, we jumped in kind of fast. Percent change is calculated. Yeah, that's gross. I don't like that. All right, well, it's not terrible. I just there's an easier way to write it, and I'd rather give you guys the easier. All right. Percent change is the change divided by original, which is dangerous to say. Because it really means like the price that we just had. So be careful, because if we talk about bringing an item into a store, then putting the price up, and then putting the object on sale, we no longer go back to the original price. We talk about the price it just was. So be careful. This is what we normally, like if you look up percent change, this is what you're going to find. It's the change over the original or the change over the previous price. If you want to write down, like, we can also call it the previous price. So please put like an or something there. If you write down both, don't make it look like multiplication. So if we do that here, what's our change from 30 to 33? We already said 3. Right, then our original, okay, 30. Sorry, did you have a question? So, can you tell me what this reduces down to? Ooh, close. Yeah, 1/10, which then is 10%. So we went up by 10%. That's not terrible. Calculate this. Take a moment. Just take a moment. Going down from 33 to 30. Did it change by 33? No. Okay. I shouldn't have really said no, you did. You did, but only because you took the new price. You didn't take the change. You took the new price. Right? So you got 110%. Right? So you got your 10% as an extra on top of the 100. What we want to do is take change divided by what the price just was. So if we look at part B, the change, how much from 33 to 30? Yeah, going down by 3, so change is still 3. But then the original that it was, or the previous, is now 33. So now it's 3 over 33. This is a complete aside, which is like off of what we're doing. I want to encourage you guys to be leaders in your class. I'm having issues with my Math 7 classes, and essentially that just means I'm having issues with half of your grade. Just not really behaving like 7th graders, and then like we come in and I teach this class, and it's like exact middle school behavior that like we want, not like, oh my gosh, you teach middle schoolers, how do you do it? Like, no, I love teaching middle schoolers. Like, you guys know how to behave, but some of your classmates don't. And outside of your math classes, the block groups get remixed in the other classes. So I would encourage you to be leaders and help your classmates like do the right stuff. Just like I was kind of saying with planning book and whatever else, like if somebody's talking and they shouldn't be, help correct that behavior. If somebody's saying something they shouldn't say, help correct that behavior. I was watching a show the other night and like somebody said something and I was like, oh my gosh, like no, like you wouldn't say that publicly these days, and it was like years ago that it was like an old show. But just like it help us have the community that you want here, right? And that comes down to like just everyone kind of doing what we need to do, and then we can do whatever we want to do. If you take care of what you got to do, then a lot of times you get to do whatever you want to do. So Quinn and I were just discussing, and because I'm loud, you probably heard all of it. Yep. Our change is still 3 here, right? But now it's 3 over 33, which is really weird because if I try to draw a diagram for this, I start at 33 and then I come back and end up at 30. So if 33 was my initial 100%, well, this 3, which most people are tempted to say, it's 10%. It's not. Because 3 over 33, what's this reduced to? 111. And the 11ths have a super cool rule with them too. Now we talked about the ninths. What's the rule for the ninths? You can remind us of how it turns into like decimals. Right?
Anything over 9 except for 9 always turns out as a repeat decimal.
And it repeats that number, right? 111 comes out to be 0.090909 forever. So it's about a 9% change as opposed to a 10% change. But check this out. I want to take a moment to talk about these, especially since my week is getting a little weird. I want you to discover the pattern on your own. So I'm going to show you a couple of them. So you don't have to write these down, but this is just cool to teach you guys because we had the opportunity for a moment. So we have 111. If I could make 11 today. 2 11ths. Apparently the gravity's turned up in this room. Yeah. Gross. Sometimes my hand doesn't do what I want it to do because I'm writing on a vertical surface. What's this going to be? 0.636363. Why? Quinn? Wait, Simon?
Times 9 repeating.
2 times 9 is 18. 3 times 9 is 27. 4 times 9 is 36. 5 times 9 is 45. 6 times 9 is 54. 7 times 9 is gonna be 63. Repeating forever. Any division by 11. Now what's fun is to do the long division and then you'll actually see why this happens because you get stuck in this infinite loop, which fun. I have a weird definition of fun. It makes the multiples of 9 repeat, which actually, I'm going to have to clean up some brain after this.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. No. Oh, no. You mustn't. No.
It's the opposite.
No.
9s.
That's
weird.
No, it's not.
It's the exact same rule flipped around.
What's wrong with that?
Division by 9 is multiples of 11. But the multiples of 11 you don't recognize because it's the same number over and over and over again. But it's the multiples of 11. So if I give you 7 ninths, it's 0.77 repeating for, but you don't actually care because you just see 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. But if I think about it as chunk, it's the multiples of 11. Connor?
Yeah. I always have a question. Let's repeat it. If you put an arrow for repeated decimal, it's right there in the number line. So is there an end to a repeated decimal? No.
So you can infinitely zoom into the number line. Let me
You follow what you see.
There's like this like shape without a perimeter. Yeah.
Oh, I've seen that.
Because if you try to zoom in, it'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Wait, can we look that
Oh,
up?
it's called like this. I don't know if they allow you to do like this.
So I don't know if this so say I don't even know what number they're talking about, but say we're looking at the space between any two of these. That space is a tenth, right? So then if you try to break that up into hundredths, so the space between 1.2 and 1.3, I could expand that out. Still 1/10 space. But then if I want to look in one of the 100ths spaces, wow, this video goes real slow.
Yeah.
So then between 1.25 and 1.26, but then if I want to zoom into the space of 1,000, and I mean I can keep going. So that wasn't a very good one.
Yeah, can we do the infinite shape with no perimeter?
There, like that.
Are you talking about like the cake problem?
No, it has like it has no perimeter.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe at the end of class.
Oh.
Yeah, but
Hey, I think it's a fractal. So now, if you ever want to like not make friends with your manager, by the way, certain jobs that I worked, like I'm gonna be a good employee, but I always had in the back of my mind, like, man, I could quit this job today. Like I could, and I don't think that about teaching, but like when I'm stocking shelves at Old Navy, man, I could just walk out and just like, peace, guys. No, but like it's like, but so while I respect people and I say things in a very nice manner, I'm always gonna be myself. And I even said something to Mr. Sherwood where I said, like, look, I understand my professional responsibilities, but I can't not be me, right? Like, I can't be like dishonest or whatever else. So we're at Old Navy, and we're talking about this upcoming sale, and they're like, well, if we put the prices like up 20% and then bring them back down 20%, it'll do like it's the same thing. No. And they didn't believe me. And what's worse is when you have somebody who's like an expert in a topic and you tell them that they're wrong, and then you're just asking for them to prove you wrong, right? So let's say we got a pair of shoes. How much does a pair of shoes run today? $40, 50. Okay, we'll be easy. $50. $50. Hold up. Increase this by 10%. We're gonna raise the prices by 10%, right? So we know 10% of that is another 5, so this becomes $55. I don't know what's going on with that weird dot thing. Now, we decide to have a sale and put everything 10% off. Actually, C-Bus Mattress now has a commercial that they talk about, we're going to raise our mattress prices 70, or I think they say 70%, so that then we can have our famous 70% off sale. They're making a joke about the fact that mattress stores often will be like, we're having a great sale this week, it's 85% off all our mattresses. And it's, well, what they really did was they jacked up all their prices. So then on the tag, they can put like a big red slash through the jacked up price and put it 85% off.
But it's not.
Yeah, so that's why we bought our bed online. So this, like, that's the joke of like percent off. But if I take 10% off of this, what percent do I pay? If you save 10%, what percent do you pay? 90, right? So if I want to find my sale price, 0.90, what's 90% of 55? Or what's 10% of this, if I bought my decimal? Well, 10%, I'm going to take off $5.50. So now my price comes out to be $49.50, and it's actually less than where I started. All we did was go 10% up and turn around and come 10% down. But it's not the same. It's not 9090, it's just 0.9. Because 90%, this is not a repeating. It's just 0.9.
Why does it do that?
So, the why does it do that? When we're going up, what is our 100%? The 50, the original price, right? That's where we started. When we're coming down, what is the 100%? 55. Your base value that you're referencing changes. That's why the percent changes. Like 10% is 10%, but the dollars that it is changes based off what you're referencing. First, we're referencing $50, then we're referencing 55. And that's all we're going to do on that from. So let's look at 718, which I think you guys will actually have a fairly easy time with. Because simple is in the title. What like as just like as groups process it, you mean? You could if you really want. Alright, so Marin's requesting that I just like give your groups time to like work through this lesson. That was a couple quick outwardly no's. Give me hands if you would rather just spend the next like 20 minutes doing what you could, and then tomorrow we can just like check in where you at, review stuff, and then go from there. Raise your hands if you'd rather just like have time to work. And it's still not over half. So I'll go fast. How about that? Okay, I'll try to go quick. So if I have a bunch of money, right, and I don't need it right now. Now I don't have a bunch of money, but I do conveniently have $20. So I walk to the bank. I'm like, bank, would you like my $20? And the bank is like, of course we would like your $20. So I say, bank, what do you give me for my $20? They're like, well, we'll for sure give you $20. But then, if the bank can do stuff with it, they'll give me more. So I give my $20 to the bank. Now, what's interesting about this is then the bank immediately gives it to George because George is starting a new business. Now, George is starting a new business, so he immediately gives that to the person making the T-shirts that he's going to sell. And the person making the T-shirts had to buy all their supplies. So my $20 now goes way far away. But eventually, somebody's got to pay, right? And money comes back to the bank. Now, the bank loaned George this money, right? It was the bank's money. Went to George. So George has to pay the bank back more. So when George pays the bank back, he actually, let's make this math easy. Let's say the T-shirt supplier person, whatever, had to, like, Teak ends up with 21. Somehow George ends up with like 22. And when the bank gets their money back, they have $2 extra. Now then I come back to the bank. Hey, don't rip my money. That's illegal. So I come back to the bank. I'm like, I want my money back, please. And the bank is like, well, we're going to stash this dollar in our pocket. And the bank gives me back a little bit extra. They have made money off my money. Wow. Right? I have made money off my money. And George was able to have his business up and running.
Yes.
We're all happy. Right? Except for Jessica, so I'm going to take this back. But, so, this is how interest works. Money moves around all over the place, but every time it moves, somebody wants a little bit more, or somebody has to pay a little bit more. So when George came and got that loan, the bank said, yeah, we'll loan you $20. We're just using 20 as a reference point. But when we need that back, they set a certain time period, you owe us more. And you know how much more. That's how credit cards work, that's how home loans, car loans, everything else. And this idea is called interest. So interest is the change in the base value that you start with based off a certain amount of time going by. So if George borrowed that $20 and the bank calls him up a month later and they're like, hey, you got your payment? Or like you got your, actually, yeah, we can ask that question. So they say, do you have your payment? George says, yeah, my statement says I only owe you $2 this month. The bank's like, yes, you're right. And $1.50 of that goes towards what you borrowed. The extra 50 cents goes just to the bank's pocket. But if he pays it all off, he says, well, can I just pay you back the whole $20? We had a really good month. And they're like, well, yeah, but now you owe us like 21. Or like at this point you owe. But if he waits and only pays, and actually I just want to educate you guys, and this is like, we're not doing math problems right now, but I just want to educate you. So if George pays the minimum payment back to the bank, it might take him 3 years to actually pay off his debt, and in that time, he'll end up paying the bank an extra $20. Wow. On top of the $20 he started with. That's what credit cards work. That's how a lot of people end up in a lot of debt. If you only pay your minimum payments, you're continually getting interest added on. And the feds, this actually gets kind of ugly. The feds had to step in, like, banks, what you're doing is crooked. You have to at least put on the statement, if you only pay your minimum payment, you will not be out of debt until this date. Like, years away. And that's if you don't spend any more money. So, if you ask now, if I was your parent, I probably wouldn't share my credit card statement with you. Or I don't know, maybe I would. If you ask your parents about their credit card or whatever, like loans or things they have, it will have a line in there because the federal government stepped in and made banks do this. That say if you only pay your minimum, it'll take you this long to pay it off. Now, a good strategy as you guys start to have credit cards and things, like you go to college and whatever, pay it off immediately. Just wipe it out. But the dangerous thing of that is, have you ever heard of a credit score?
Yeah.
To build your credit score, you have to have some debt. So to have a good credit score, which is what banks look at before they give you money, you have to first owe somebody money and show that you can manage your debt responsibly. So it's this really weird cycle of like, if I take on debt, that improves my credit score as long as I am paying off my debt. But if I've never taken on debt, I probably don't have a very strong credit score because they don't know if I can manage debt or not.
We're about to fall off on here.
Isn't that weird? I know.
Could you just use a debit card?
You could. So that is one strategy. And then there's other ways you can build your credit score. So actually, if you're interested in, I know I went a little far for some of you. Some of you are like, I don't care about the words that are coming out of your mouth right now. But like, if you're interested in that, look into like how to build your credit score, how to improve. You don't have one right now. You're not an adult, right? You can't take on your own debt. But every adult has a credit score, which is essentially like the bank's ranking of where you are with managing money. So if I'm paying off my debts how I should be, my credit score should be strong. If I miss a payment or if I default on a loan, which means like I just stop paying it altogether, like that's gonna hurt my credit score.
What does credit score do?
It determines what like sort of interest rate you can get. So like I have a pretty strong credit score, so when I bought my house, I got a really good interest rate, like low percentage. If I didn't have as good of an interest rate, I would have had to go for a different type of loan, which would have had a higher interest rate. Yeah.
No. How did what did it do? How did it?
This is too deep of a conversation.
No, we like the school doesn't teach this.
You're right. Well, so if there's one class that I suggest you take in high school, it's financial algebra. Financial algebra is not required, but it essentially goes through like, okay, so now you've bought a car and you have $20,000 worth of debt. How do we deal with this? Like, it teaches you the real life stuff. Take financial algebra. We should talk at lunch or something. Okay, so here's the cool thing. No, stop. I gotta teach a little bit at least. Here's the cool thing. Once you know how to do this, anybody can do this. I did this on our Chicago trip a couple years ago because a kid wanted to borrow money.
Yeah, you told us.
So, the PTSA is helping us sponsor an event, and for that, we are going to rent a banquet hall. This banquet hall is going to, we're going to need a loan of $825. I don't know how much the hall actually costs, but we need to borrow $825. So, the PTSA agrees, like, look, we'll loan you this money, but this is money that they then can't use, right? Well, we have it, they can't use it. So they want to charge us 2% interest, which is really low, right? 2%, not much to worry about. I like it when you guys know the but is coming. But it's each week, right? So, hang on. Tell me how much we owe after a week. Figure it out. Check with your team. What is 2% of 825? Like, calculate it. What is our...
825.
No! Put your hands, like, if you're touching a calculator, it's lava. How can I find 1%? Savannah? What is, dude, what is 1%? George?
100. So, well, 1% of this?
What is 1%? Just period. Like, what is 1%? What does it mean?
Well, it's like 100.
100.
100, yeah.
100. That's a percent. Is 100.
You move the decimal over twice.
1% is $8.25. So 2%
$16.
is $16.50.
That's a lot.
Hold on. How could I? You're not with me at all. I have no idea what you're doing, but you're like making up a dance routine over here. You work with Mr. Roboto. Domo arigato. So, what would we owe after 2 weeks? How can we figure that out? Double it. What about 3 weeks? 4 weeks? What about like 3 years? We could figure it out, right? Now it's 52 weeks in a year. So the easy way to remember weeks in a year, it's same as cards in a deck. 52 cards in a deck, 52 weeks in a year. So, here is what I needed to get to teaching you at a minimum for today, which I feel like I'm not doing a very good job. I know, I'm teaching you some real life stuff. Interest. Put it on your paper. Interest. Actually, we should probably write the word. So write the word. Write the word, please. Interest.
So
INTEREST. Interest. Interest equals principal times rate times time. Now, this is the weird thing, and we had like an interesting argument about this a couple years ago. There are 2 different ways to spell principal. One is L-E, one is A-L, right? The principal, because he's your pal, right? Mr. Sure gets my pal. But that is also the way you spell the money principal. Now, what this actually means is your start. Your principal is the starting amount. Your rate is your percentage, right? But over 100, so in decimal form or in fraction form. So rate, the reason we don't use the word percent is we're not putting in the percent. Like if it's 2%, I don't put in 2. I put in 200 or 0.02. And time is relative to the problem. Could be weeks, could be months, could be years, could be days, could be minutes. Now, the reason this is called simple interest. So once you get this down, you can put your pencils down for a moment. There's also compound interest. Compound interest is constantly happening. It doesn't wait for that week to add interest on. It's just automatically occurring. Like right now, you're like occurring interest. That's compound interest. It's actively happening all the time. That's why we're going to start you guys with simple interest, so you get the idea down. Then compound interest will come later in your life. Okay, that's why this is called simple. I normally get the question like, what's the complicated interest? Well, yeah, it's compound interest.
So would that mean like what you're explaining is like that out of the week, every like whatever second there is, like whatever, that mean that like there's always gaining interest? Like,
depends on the type of loan you get, yeah.
So like every minute is gaining something. Is that?
Yep, it's actively happening. It's like if I had a compound interest loan and it occurs for like a month, a week, and 2 days, and I go in and I'm like, I want to pay it off right now, that like they have to like essentially stop the interest from happening or say like, what's your account balance right now?
That's weird.
If I checked it last night, like it wouldn't be accurate. Yeah. So that's compound interest is like always changing.
If you get a loan to pay off a debt, do another loan to pay off that.
Yes, but that's extremely dangerous
Why?
because then you're just taking on debt after debt after debt.
Because you're filling up that debt.
Filling up a debt to get another loan.
Please jot this down, and this is 486. They then ask us, what if we have this loan for 8 weeks? And guys, I actually like to put all of these things in parentheses just to make your life easier. 825 times 0.02 times 8. Now is when using calculators is pretty darn necessary because these problems are decimal places and a bit more complicated math. Even if I multiply this in and I get 0.16, well that's, I feel like, almost even harder to deal with. Or you could just take your $8.25 and multiply by 8. But if we want to get there super fast, we just type this on our calculator.
Oh my god.
What do we get?
132.
I got one. It's 132.
I was about to say, somebody's saying 1, 2, 3.
Man.
8 weeks. So great questions up here. Where did I get the 0.02? Where did I get the 8? The problem ends up asking us, how much will we owe after 8 weeks? Now this is wrong. Well, it's not wrong. That's not what we owe. Right? That's the interest. So now if we want to talk about balance. So, by the way, there's 2 formulas here, and I have stupid nicknames for both of them.
Ooh, I want to hear them.
This is what I call the PERT formula. You know, like PERT shampoo, whatever. Like so, PRT, right? It's like PERT, just like the DIRT formula, right? Distance, rate, time. The PERT formula, principal, rate, time, same thing, right? Interest is PERT, but then I got the BIP formula. BIP. The BIP formula. Balance equals the interest plus your principal. So now our balance that we owe is that $132 plus the initial $825. And now when we go to pay back the PTSA, we owe $957. And guys, that's only at 2%. You know what my interest rate is for my house?
What?
I'm lucky to have it under 4. That's a good interest rate. You know what interest rate is on a credit card? Give me like a real estimate of percent rate of a credit card. Okay, 7,
20,
15,
18.
un momento.
Oh, it's 10.
I need to replace this board out there anyways.
13% I say.
Look at this special offer I got mailed because I have a great credit score.
Wow.
Mary, what percent are they offering me? 14.99%, right? That's that mental. They're offering me 15% as a special rate. Now hold up. That then in the smaller words says variable rate. The fine print. Is it all the way on the back? No, check it out. This is crazy. The fine print will tell you what your variable rate will actually go in between. Dang, you guys might have ripped off the other page. My pages have started to like rip off out there. So 15% variable APR. APR means like amount per year, essentially, or like accrued per year or something like that. It could go all the way up to 27%.
Oh my god.
You're looking at almost 30% on whatever debt you take on. So let's go 15%. right? Let's say I have this great rate of 15%, and I want to buy a bike right now because I want this bike right now. I go and let's say I get a cheap bike, $100. After a month of me not paying it off, because I don't have to pay my credit card immediately, I owe them $115. Or sorry, not after a month. It depends on how your card's set up, how quickly the interest would accrue. But if that's APR, then it would be like $15 divided by 12. You're going to accrue that much each month. But all I'm really trying to get you to realize is like, if you take on debt, you're immediately owing more money. Now, sometimes you do that on purpose, right? And we're going to finish this lesson tomorrow, but sometimes you do that on purpose. It's like, I bought a house, even though I knew, like, so if you go and buy a house for like $160,000, right, which is like actually pretty cheap for a house, you know you're not actually paying $160,000 unless you have cash in your pocket to pay that right now. Otherwise, you're going to take a loan, and you're going to pay back more than that. But if you're renting, renting has a bunch of positives too, but when I pay rent, because I rented for a while, that money's just gone. Yes, but when I rent, I get nothing. At the end of renting, I have nothing. Right? Like, I don't have a house at the end of paying my rent. We're out of, so somebody show me this later, and I'll have it pulled up for tomorrow. But we are out of time for today. Hopefully, you at least learned a little bit about what interest means. Hey, hold up. Give me your attention for like 10 more seconds. If you do 718 tonight, or at least work on it, odds are no homework over the weekend. So get it done tonight. Sweet. Awesome. So try to do that. So the better credit score you have, the lower